Boom, there's my voice. And then I'm going to turn on your audio.
Oh,
And then I'm
hello.
going to make the over the this disappear, and here we are. We're visually on the thing here. Paid for the streaming. I paid for the streamer mic. I'm getting it in the shot. So there we go. Uh, it's pointed the wrong way. There we go. Okay, you can still
It's
see a
okay.
little bit of the RGB, and that's the most important thing. Um, uh, so we're talking about something unrelated to TTRPGs right now. And so uh, grain of salt, but we're talking about microtransactions for specifically cosmetics.
Yeah, we've been talking about the recent release of Warhammer 40K Dark Tide, which I
Yeah,
have a strong love-hate
absolutely,
relationship with right now. The combat is excellent. The game is gorgeous.
absolutely, it is.
And it's just really satisfying to kill a bunch of plague plague people. They're they're heretics that are follower of Nurgle. If you're at all familiar with 40k lore, so that's great. But the systems that the game is built on top of,
Oh yeah.
like
Hmm.
the cosmetic systems, and the premium currency systems, and then the non-premium currency cosmetics you can earn through gameplay, are all really poorly developed. The cosmetics, just obviously, like they have like tons of cosmetics available, and then the other systems in the game just don't really work right. Like the game launched with a cosmetic store, but didn't have its crafting system built into it that you need to be able to tweak and refine your character's build. So it's like really quite obvious that they had these priorities of like, let's put something out there that we can use to siphon money from people, even though we don't actually have a complete product. Um, and I hate shit talking people because of there are people who made this game who pour their blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and there's people who really believe in this game as a really great source of entertainment, and you know that executives at the top somewhere are responsible for all of these shitty, gross. Let's just be real. They're despicable decisions. They're
Yeah.
they're gross. They're money grubbing. Um, like I'll just kind of reiterate some points you and I were making earlier because we weren't streaming. But the issue was that uh, if in a game I am paying for, I expect there to be a fair amount of cosmetics that I can earn through gameplay, even if there is stuff behind a paywall.
Yeah.
Also, a full set of stuff, a full costume for your character in a game you've already paid for should not be $10 per set.
That's wild.
That's egregious.
It's super
Um,
egregious.
so that's messed up. Of course, they have a premium currency which they sell in chunks that never matched up with
Hmm.
the amount of any of the cosmetics, which they eventually did add a bundle into with that amount after everyone complained.
Yeah. Again, it's perfectly fine for you to use if you want to add value with larger dollar purchases. So you use an alternative currency as long as that alternative currency is priced in such a way that like the currency is priced in such a way that it always works out to be good even units of what you're selling. And so it's
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, so I spend $10 and I get, you know, 1,000 platinum points. But
Right.
everything breaks down in such a way that me getting 1,000 platinum points isn't there. And then if I spend $20, I get, let's say, 2,250 platinum points because everything's 250 platinum points or whatever it is, right? Whatever it
Yeah.
is. And you're not going to hear me complain about those units if your shit is actually relatively cheap. Like if you have a bunch of like dollar
The
items
other
and
thing,
50-cent items, then you know what? Use your bundles however you want. But it's always games that have like to buy a whole set, it's $10, or to buy this one thing, it's $5. That then do things where it's like, well, you can buy our bundle currency, and then you can get 2.5 items.
Well, but
And
here's
with
the other
that,
here's the other thing that's scummy about it is it feels like it's been mathematically engineered so that you are always left with a small amount of currency left over.
yeah,
And that is like totally manipulating people on that sunk cost fallacy
exactly. Now you've
of
just
saying,
got,
"Oh, now I have this currency left over that I can't ever spend. I have to spend just more. No, I have to spend more money just so I can get rid of that and actually use what I fucking paid for."
mm-hmm.
Like that is shady and manipulative, and you know we have we obviously don't really have an audience here right now, but I'm just gonna say Fat Shark should be embarrassed.
They should be. They should be. But like if a game is primarily an online multiplayer game,
Hmm.
I get that they have to monetize the continuous maintenance for that. The $40 to $70 price point for games, even though, and it's certainly anything lower than that, was not built with the idea of it's like, and then you have to keep spending money on the maintenance of the game. And I get that they have to figure that out, but like they have to do it with like a level of ethics and authenticity that makes you feel like you're getting the value for the upfront money, and that you genuinely don't have to spend money on the long-term cost if you are only likely to play the game for the first couple months that it's out, right? And everything.
Let's be real. Like, I want to point out a game that I think is in a similar field and handles its pricing beautifully. Is Deep Rock Galactic.
Yeah, Deep Rock Galactic is a,
Deep Rock Galactic is a spectacular game, uh, really fun gameplay, and also handles its cosmetics and currency and everything about it as really the best I could possibly hope for. There is no in-game cosmetic shop in that game. You earn 99% of the cosmetics through gameplay. What they do is once every season, and I think they're doing like 3 seasons a year right now, they do a big content update where they launch a new mission type, add some new weapons to the game, and a bunch of skins in that season. And then there's one set of skins that they sell for like $7, and it's skins for every single class in the game and every single weapon in the game, and you get the whole thing for $7 or $8, and then everything else can be earned through gameplay. And I'm just like, holy shit, that's such a great deal, and they're still supporting this game years later.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I don't even necessarily have to like the skins. I want to buy that DLC pack of skins just to send them more money because if I support the game and the way they're designing it. Like that's the kind of game design that I want. They don't even charge for the DLC for the season updates and the new content. They're not even actually charging people for that. They're just saying like, hey, if you want to support us, you can buy these skins, but most of the skins you can still earn. It's just this one particular set, and it's like, and you can't buy any of the skins that you can earn. It's like,
I love it. I love
yeah,
that. I love that. I love that completely. It's like, that's again, it's a very that proves to work all the time, right? That methodology proves to work all the time, and I wish that other studios would accept that. It's like, listen, if you're going to charge me up front, your microtransactions ongoing have to like absolutely slap.
hmm,
And they have to be priced in a way that makes me want to spend more money on your game, because I've already dropped like $60-$70. And as different as an ongoing online game is than like a single player story event can be, I still expect a fair amount of value for the upfront, right?
yeah.
Yeah, like,
Well, and I also think that there's like this online service style of game.
yeah.
Um, I dislike it for so many reasons.
Mhm.
I dislike it because of it means games have a set lifespan and they can't be revisited by future generations in any
Mm,
way. Or if they do, it takes a lot of work and it's legally dubious,
hmm
which I don't care for. And also, it's like they like to pretend that running these games on servers is really complicated and difficult. Left 4 Dead did dedicated servers ages ago and had basically the same gameplay mechanics. You know, um, the fact that like somehow gamers forgot that we used to be able to run and host our own servers.
yeah. Excuse me. This is not a new wheel of information or a new invention at this point. If you don't run dedicated servers, or even if you do run dedicated servers, at all of this point, this is either baked into engines to enable and make a functional thing, or baked into your dev suite, I should say. Or and on top of that, you can simply go to like any of the major hosting factories, be it Amazon, Microsoft, or Google, and they all have things built for this. So like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like these studios have to be like. It's not like when Halo first went online and they had to figure out what that would look like internally on Microsoft as their first, like, as a major hosted thing for console players, and make weird estimates about this, right? It's a matchmaking online software. But yeah, I mean, what was it? The early 2000s when people were doing Counter Strike on
Not even in the 90s,
yeah, even like late-ish, not like back end of the 90s.
back end of the 90s, early 2000s, people were hosting Counter-Strike servers.
Mhm.
Um, then you had, I mean, I still think that even their most recent stuff like CS:GO,
Yeah,
does CS:GO let people host their own servers? I would
I
be
assume
surprised if
so.
it didn't.
Fallout certainly tried to with
And then, of course,
76
you have like Minecraft. People run their own servers
all
on
the
it.
time, all the time.
Valheim is a new a big game right now, or
Does
was
Arc let you
last
do
year.
it? Arc lets you do
Um,
it, right? Or at
Arc, I'm
least
pretty
it
sure.
dedicates a section for a
Yeah,
server.
the Arc lets you run your own server. A lot of like the PUBG, like the PUBG or Daisy style games, lets you run your own servers.
But yeah,
Um,
so
but so like really there really isn't much of an excuse.
no, there
Um,
just isn't. It's a
the
cost in,
choice
cost
is
out estimable amount of money, and it's not a new technology. It does require a lot of upkeep, maintenance, and server rolling over and stuff like that, and other little like things. But again, that's not like it's not like no one knows what that looks like, costs, or requires anymore.
mhm,
Like that fucking path has been mapped, and there's multiple paths on the map, and you get to pick one. I mean, I
mhm.
what was it? I can't remember how much it was. It was like I played. Obviously it's not a first person online, but like I played Vampire Survivors for
Yeah.
like, and they didn't charge any. They had some DLC shit that you could buy, and of course they had cosmetics, but
Oh,
they only
Vampire
had like a few.
Survivors. That game is fun. It's like what, $3, $4?
Not Vampire Survivors. Sorry. Vampire Survivors is great. Vampire
Are you talking about V Rising?
V Rising, it's a lot more Diablo-y, right? But like
Yeah.
it's the same basic premise of, it's like, oh, I can play on a multiplayer server, or I can play in my own dedicated space with my friends, and the only things I could buy were design packs for my castle, and that would come with a couple bonus like skins, but like that game wasn't really about skins and character customization to that degree, because you look like whatever armor you were wearing,
Yeah.
and everything for the most part. So there were just a couple little
I will
specialty
say
things,
this,
but it had like two, and then
but
that was it.
if you and even like even free to play games don't have this egregious of
Oh
cosmetic system.
yeah,
Like, have you ever played Warframe? Warframe totally free to play.
oh yeah. Warframe's like the fucking benchmark gold standard of free to play.
It is one of the best like one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best structures of a monetized free to play game.
Yep.
Like I think their system is really fair. Um, do I really? Do I still don't really care for free to play games overall,
No.
but I think there's a lot of problems with them. They tend to become grind fests because and
Yeah.
Warframe is not uh, free of this problem either.
Mm.
Um, where the game becomes a grind fest in which you put a grind in front of a player and then a way to buy their way around it.
Yeah, and
Um,
like and that's pretty classic. That's a pretty classic free to play model.
but
God
at
knows
least,
Marvel Snap is doing that to me. Like, and I haven't bought anything for it, but it is
yeah,
desperately trying to encourage me with its 4 different kinds of currencies.
and
4 different kinds, Brandon. But it's a great game
I've
mechanically.
that's what I straight up quit. I picked up that game that what was it called? Um, it was the Diablo-esque like game that Amazon published this year from that Korean
Oh
publisher.
yeah, I remember. I can't remember its name, but I know what game you're talking about.
But I played that for like a few weeks and it was a good game, but it was burdened with just mountains of different styles of currency.
Because you have to build the game's flow and mechanics around that many kinds of currencies.
hmm And then, oh, I heard someone talking about this of like intrinsic and extrinsic fun in gaming. And what that means is intrinsic means the game is fun because you play it. And extrinsic means the game is fun because it gives you a reward once you do something in it. If a game is extrinsically fun, you should stop playing it. If it's only fun is because of the extrinsic value that you're getting from it, because of at the end of doing a task in the game, it gives you a currency to spend or something, that's a garbage game and you shouldn't play it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's me. We spent our first 30 minutes here ranting about
Yeah, a little bit of
cosmetics.
rant about the digital world. Something that is going to through WotC and D&D. Absolutely. This is whether it's in the next year or two, or whether it's 5 to 10 years down the line. There's no way Hasbro ignores it for
Are you all
forever.
ready for character cosmetics and D&D Beyond to be
I mean,
microtransactions?
they already
'Cause,
kind of have that with the player sheets and the dice, the digital dice.
mhm.
The fortunate thing is that's very much like you don't need this,
Here.
and for your subscription, you get a bunch of stuff.
So, I mean, you want? I want to show you something I got over here because of
Yeah.
Mitch and I. You know, we do all the Kickstarters, and the real world has cool character sheets too. And I took this one that we got from a Kickstarter called Ouroboros, um, and laminated it so it can be reused. But
Very good.
and then you just use a wet erase marker on it,
Mm-hmm.
and with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, it comes right off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, like just really beautiful character sheet.
Gorgeous.
Um, and I don't know, I don't, you know, I have like tons of these because the thing came with like a freaking like notebook or like a notepad of
Oh,
terrible
excellent.
character sheets. So today we want to talk about narrative inspiration.
Yeah,
I think we could do
something that
something
has nothing to
about.
do with what we're talking about.
We could easily say your next campaign should be about an evil lord who nickels and dimes his his peasants for every little thing that they possibly want. Um,
Yeah, that'd do it. That'd definitely do it. That's your capitalism is the villain,
yeah, I
classic
mean,
campaign. So I wanted to talk a lot about narrative inspiration, specifically within tabletop games, because there's a TTRPG for every kind of thing, right?
mhm.
Like if you want to do heists, if you want to be in space, if you want to be a pirate, if you want to open a B and a a bed and breakfast, if you want to like run a coffee shop. There's TTRPGs for everything. If you just want to journal, there's journaling TTRPGs. But
What's that one like? Something thousand year vampire or something like that.
yeah, something like that, right? So there's something for everything. But I think what we often ignore when as GMs, I know myself included in this, is that we often ignore outside of genre stuff in our genre games. And I think that is at the loss of creativity, right? And I don't think there's any blame for this other than this is sort of how we consume media, right? If you're watching a sci-fi series, like The Expanse, right, and everything, you're unlikely to be like, okay, so we've got this Expanse, and maybe you're GM crafting the sci-fi series that's kind of like The Expanse and everything like that. You're not necessarily gonna put like a 1940s 1940s gritty holodeck episode a la Star Trek into that just to have a little fun with genre, and everything that's all mobbed up and everything. But there's ways to pick the things that live in popular genres that we're all familiar with and just remap them in surprising ways in your campaign, not only narratively, which we'll talk about, but this also inspires whole systems of like conflict and challenge and interest for players that aren't inherently expected at the table, because again, we're all familiar with the tropes of a genre. If you're doing a pirate thing, there's probably going to be some ship battles. There's probably going to be some sort of sea monster. There's probably going to be finding some treasure. Almost inevitably, because of fucking Pirates of the Caribbean, there's going to be a ghost ship of some kind, right? Like these are the tropes. These are the tropes of the genre of pirating, right? But you could just as easily take something from, let's say, a horror thriller, where one of the members of your ship, when you last left port, one of the NPC crew members is quietly eliminating other crew members on your ship, and you've got to find who the murderer is, whether it's a murder mystery or whether you do it like Jason style horror. You now have all these things that you can take, and you can just be like, it's the same thing, right? It's a pirate ship, so it's an enclosed location like a camp, and you can't get away from it. But if it's a bigger galley type ship, you've got some room to move through it, and everything, and you can try and get away from it. And you can go horror style, or you can go murder mystery and be like Train. What is it? What's the big celebrity fest, Mr. Train? Orient Express. You can do an Orient Express on a pirate ship just as easily as you would do. Maybe you pick up some random travelers who pay you a little extra money, and so there's all these new NPCs that the players need to do.
One shot is where you do a murder mystery, and one of the players is actually the killer.
You can set that up with that do a murder mystery in that style. And again, oftentimes in the world of non D&D TTRPGs, you can go online and you can find whole systems and drive through RPG that are built for this. But it's exciting narratively, and it gives you a lot of options narratively if you take that plot device and shove it into a space that it doesn't normally go in.
I will say, I've heard one system I want to give a shout out to that I've heard good things about, but I haven't had a chance to play it myself. Because there's so many systems I want to play, and I haven't had a chance to play. I've heard Gumshoe is a really great system for detective and mystery gameplay. And so that's one to look out for.
Yeah, and looking at those things, here's a great example. I brought up Marvel Snap earlier, right? Yeah. So Marvel Snap is Gwent, if anyone's ever played Gwent or Hearthstone, right? It's your typical, like, there's 3 lanes, you lay cards down from a limited deck that you've created that you draw from, and you're trying to have the most power in each lane. And there's modifiers and everything like that. And so Marvel Snap is kind of a classic kind of card game online, kind of modern era and stuff. It's completely free and everything. But like here's the deal. From this game, I mechanically am like, how could I take the idea of controlling 3 lanes or 3 paths or 3 regions and take that and put it in an RPG? how can I take that? And it's like, okay, well, like maybe we're defending a keep, right? And we've come upon this keep and they're under siege and we got in through a tunnel and everything like that. And we're doing a big defense. This also happens in Final Fantasy VI, and everything. And so then the party is there, and you have to pick who's in charge of what units and what units they might have access to. Now, you don't have to build out this whole complicated card system for them. You don't have to build out nearly as many variables as a game that's going to be dedicated to this. But then the party can discuss which resources. Maybe you have 9 units because you've got 3 paths. You've got 9 units, and each of those 9 units have some sort of thing that they're good at and weakness. And you've got to combine them in interesting ways. And then you, as the GM, know what you're going to throw at those pathways and see how they can kind of cleverly deploy things. That is a siege, which is not something actually done a lot in fantasy RPGs, but or fantasy tabletop, but a siege scenario where you automatically split the party by having them like command and decide to put their player characters in as almost like generals, League of Legends style, and I'm merging a ton of things into something that I don't even really need to come up with a new mechanical resolution for, because a game like D&D or a game like Pathfinder is going to have all kinds of like units and stuff like that to do that. But if I want to, I can go to RPGs that have sort of military incursion systems, review those, and see how I would then look at the game I'm playing.
Makes me think of, what was Twilight 2000 something?
Is that one of them?
Twilight 2000 is like an old school, very tactical focused, like combat focused TTRPG. Really, so it's like set in a post-apocalyptic setting, but like if you get like the book for it, it's like filled with just like pages of stats on weapons and vehicles.
Yeah, and you can
are all like thoroughly documented real world items.
Oh, very cool.
It's meant to basically be like you're surviving in a war torn post apocalyptic hellscape, and kind of something like that. So, narrative is, but I think we're kind of steering more toward like that with that kind of thing. You're steering more towards system.
I am, but the system has also brought about like a bunch of narrative options there.
True.
Which, because again, I mean, how many times do you ever at a table play? There's invaders coming in that isn't a zombie game, and everything, and now you have a system that sort of pushes those, and you can start looking toward. You can look towards zombies and be like, okay, how do they defend them all from zombies? What are things that can go wrong in that genre that I can then explain narratively in the fantasy genre that I'm playing, or the space station genre, or something like that, right? Or reflexively, how can I can't think of a lot of fiction that deals with castle sieges. How can I read the Iliad and take some of the fortress sieges and put them into my defend them all from zombies?
Well, I think I would, if that's what you're kind of going for, I would kind of lean more towards looking at me, I'm a big film nut, and there's plenty of great castle siege sequences in film.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk on like a really large scale, you have movies like Troy.
Oh yeah, Troy's a great example. Yeah, you're
Troy
right.
is a really great example, and it has like the big battle sequence, but it also has moments where heroes shine.
Exactly.
So that's a really great. If you want to do a big battle sequence, Troy is a good one. If you want to do it on a smaller scale, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, has some really great moments. And don't be afraid to go back in time too. Like older films are a treasure that I feel like younger people are still really hesitant to take the time and energy to dig into, and there's some just excellent older cinema.
And if you've not seen Kevin Costner play Robin Hood, then you've not seen the best version of the
clearly the best Robin Hood ever. No, obviously he's a terrible Robin Hood, but that movie
slaps. The movie moves very well, and Christian Slater is also excellent in it. No, I agree with you. And then don't be afraid to take all that stuff, all that kind of like, whether it's classical fantasy or classical, like historically presented, or fantastical medieval era. Don't be afraid to take that and then put it into your fucking urban fantasy or your stuff, because it doesn't take a lot to sort of modify that. And you don't, again, there it's so hard to sit and think when you're in like a fantasy world or you're in a sci-fi world, what can I do that it doesn't show up in this world in most of the media, but it shows up a ton in another genre,
Well, I'll,
right?
I'll kind of digress back to
Yeah.
something you said earlier. You were talking about the expanse, and one of the things that I think is something that is useful. So like I think me personally, I like to I'm more inclined towards running smaller campaigns, shorter
Yeah.
campaigns,
Yeah.
things that have set start and end points. But I think the vast majority of people out there have thoroughly romanticized the idea of the big sprawling sandbox campaign.
Yep.
Um,
Terrible
and
idea, by the way. Don't do it. I don't recommend it.
they're hard as hell to run.
They're a
And
nightmare to run. They take for fucking ever. They almost never complete.
and so like let's just say we're going to approach this idea from that perspective, right? Um it may benefit you then to try and break up your campaign into narrative arcs that you focus on a certain style of
Yeah.
story.
Why not?
So you may have an arc that, because let's be real, like if you're playing an Expanse has a lot of different possibilities going on in it. It's really actually quite a broad setting.
Hmm.
So using that as an example, because I really like it, you can have, just like the story does, have moments of like noir detective kind of searching for trying to find a missing person. Um, and then you can have political intrigue, and then you can have straight up like drawn out space battles.
Hmm.
Um, you can have space pirates, um, and and of course, Expanse is a fairly dark and serious toned show. It doesn't mean that your story has to be.
No, no,
Um,
you're using the plot beats from the thing, and then everything in the expanse, especially how the expanse is specifically set up, which is part of what makes it so good, can easily be done in like a Western Sea, with a couple different, like a continent nation that borders the sea, and like an island nation, and everything, and it would all, and then maybe like some sort of, if we want to do a comparison to Space Station, some sort of Pirates Cove dock city. That's just the series of them. And then you're in the same exact kind of physical structures. It takes days to get to X, days to get to Y. You're just as in as much danger on the open sea as you are in space, kind of thing. You can do that and have that all pretty much translate straight across, minus the sci-fi elements, and you just replace them with seafaring fantasy shit, and you're in the exact same boat. A city's still going to have murders in it and detectives. Like merchant train between them is still going to get attacked by space pirates or regular pirates, right? All
mhm.
of these things translate, and you're not having to fucking invent everything or think about how to write a clever version of something that has been in Lord of the Rings for the thousandth time.
That's this is
Um,
something that you and I have said many times, and I'm going to reiterate it again now. You as a DM are here to run a game. You do not need to be an author
yeah,
of a novel
yeah.
and running a game. It's really not to your benefit to try and craft everything from scratch.
No, it's
Um,
arguably deeply to your detriment. And is it is inevitable. Especially with the smaller ones. I think this is really interesting with and when I say smaller games, I mean less timed games, right? A lot of indie RPGs aren't meant to be played for like fucking 3 years.
Yeah.
They don't have the runway or the character evolution points for that, and that's fine. That's good. Again, highly recommended.
Yeah.
But a lot of those RPGs, the non D&Ds, the non Pathfinders, are very encapsulated within a genre. And the first thing you can do for people that have played that kind of an RPG before to surprise them is be like, all right, we're gonna do the RPG mechanics of this, like, you own a coffee shop, but but I'm going to introduce this as now you have to defend that coffee shop from genre. So the first part of the game you're kind of building are from zombies. You're kind of building your coffee shop, and now you got to figure out how the coffee shop survives with a zombie invasion. And you don't even necessarily need a lot of mechanics out of something that has zombies in it. You can either do them on the fly or in prep, right? You can do them a little bit in prep and just sort of invent a kind of win-loss scenario, or you can narrate the zombie stuff and have that be fully narrative and fully just like use your imagination's solutions kind of things, and then have the even more fun. What do you do with the game mechanics after you've settled in to the problem that you've introduced from a different genre, right? And or like, not even what do you do with the game mechanics, what do you do with the game narrative? If I have a coffee shop and there's a zombie world, and then I do a little bit of zombie things, and then the city gets walled off classic city style, like every zombie genre has, right? Longer running zombie genre. How does that affect the coffee shop narratively? Like, how does it affect the coffee shop if your city suddenly has to become a fortress of human survivors and they're surrounded? Do you keep life normalcy? Do you do that? And you suddenly have a ton of different new narration points that you didn't have before, because what you were thinking for running a coffee shop is the things that were either in the book to help guide you with that, or the things that you have seen in stories about running tiny boutique spaces and businesses, like usually rom-coms in the case of coffee shops.
One of the things, now I'm just thinking about this idea about your zombie shop. Now, one of the things I think that when I think of zombies, I think that I would love to see a twist on zombies.
Oh yeah.
Um, and you can do this in small ways too. For example, you can make it so that the zombie infection is more like regular infections, and that some people are going to be able to fight off the infection with their immune system and others aren't.
Yeah.
And so that means getting bitten is not an immediate death sentence.
Yeah.
And you actually have to then stop and wait and see if someone rides out their fever or succumbs to the infection. It also means that, like, when you have this scenario of the city getting put on lockdown, rather than having a full-on zombie apocalypse, what you have is a city under martial law, and you have people being checked in the streets by military, scanning for people who might be infected and quarantining them.
And then you're opening up a whole bunch of genres with that, of being like, is your place a place of resistance to this? Is it a respite from it? Are you secretly, not that I want a table to ever do this if I'm running a game like this, are you secretly informing to the power structure that currently is implemented in martial law? I hearken that I assume that most tables would never go that route. But like, you could have a character that does it. You could have a character that's doing it. There's whole lots of story growth that can come from that kind of a thing of coffee shop in a time of terror and fascism, where it's not locking a city down with martial law because of a possible zombie outbreak is using fascism as a very hyperbolic state, but a militant lockdown, right? Like a rigid society. And what if your characters do something that creates a potential threat because they resist the sort of regulations that are put to create peace amongst their customer base? There's so much that can happen here. And even if it's just a backdrop, even if it's just a little dash of flavor and everything, it gives it a spice, it gives it a cayenne pepper that you weren't expecting to be in the meal. And that, to me, is such an exciting concept when doing narrative, and also makes you as a GM seem like a much more brilliant storyteller, because all you're simply doing is like, what if I put What if I put salt on this dark chocolate peanut butter thing? And it's like, we know that those all go together now, but someone had to figure it out. That it was like, oh, you put sea salt on the outside of it, and that kicks up both the sweetness of the dark chocolate and adds to the peanut butter flavor. How
So
delicious!
I want to kind of point out something about how we've been talking about this, and I think in many ways it kind of runs a little bit at odds with what I think a lot of new people to D&D
Yeah.
are trying to get out of their D&D games,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's the different types of plots. You know, you either have a character-driven plot or a story-driven plot. Okay, you have a character-driven story or a plot-driven story. The the events are is the story driven by your character or is it driven by the events in the world? Um, and I think people obviously they're not completely mutually exclusive to each other. There's
No.
definitely some overlap, but I think you know oftentimes when you look at D&D design, the characters are reactive. They're not proactive. And if their
Yeah.
characters are reactive, then that means it's a plot-driven story.
Yeah.
Um, and um, I guess what I'm getting at with this is that um, oftentimes I feel like that there's been a really strong push in the D&D community to make character-driven D&D
Yeah.
over. And I'm going to say this to a lot of people out there. It's fucking hard.
It's the hardest thing you're ever gonna do.
Character driven D&D is really hard, and it puts a lot of weight on your players, and new players think that this is going to be cool and interesting, but it's like basically trying to make the players drive
Why?
the story a lot more.
Why do
um
they think when you look at modern D&D for entertainment consumption, why do you think all of the top like streams, podcasts, what have you, are either actors, improv artists, comedians, or comedy writers? Like, it's because they all know how to do character driven stuff from their craft. So it seems so much easier for them because everyone at that table has done that work before and knows how to enter
they've
that space.
they've made it their profession.
Yeah. Most people, I think a lot of new people to D&D and to tabletop in general, and this has always been true since video games, or since video games kind of came out, and only became more true as the popularity of video games expanded. A lot of people that come into D&D are gamers. They play on PC, they play on their phones, they play on consoles, right? They're gamers. And so in their mind, reactive is the name of the game most of the time.
Hmm.
It's why in Through the Mill, it's why Camille specifically, the player Camille, is so very good at emotional beats because they LARP, and LARPing is a style of immersive improv, character driven stuff, and is built more for. There's usually an overarching narrative, but it's very responsive to what the players do in their character roles at the LARP. So it's sort of trained Camille to be very, very like, okay, I see the hook for the plot that's also for my character's arc. I'm going to pursue this and like get into it. And that's super difficult to learn, to get good at, to be comfortable with. It also requires a GM that's good at moving and bobbing and weaving when players do things you're not prepared for, and it means that you've got to have a lot of buy-in from the players involved, the GM, and prepping the story that the GM might have initially put together, that it's just gonna fucking flip on its fucking head. It's just gonna change, and that's okay. But
I
it's so
also
hard. It's so much easier to do reactive plotting,
Yeah, it is.
for
And
everybody at the table. Everybody at the table, that's easier for, in my opinion.
yeah, and I think it reminds me of these moments I've seen because I haven't watched all that much Critical Role. I've seen clips here and there, and they are undeniably talented at what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Though it's not my cup of tea personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because of they're so good at those character driven moments. inevitably, because and also because their characters have strong motivations, their characters are inevitably driven to conflict. And there's been moments in the story where I've seen people do things that they themselves wouldn't do, but their characters do, that everyone at the table is fine with, but even the person who did them was like torn up about.
Yeah, that's
And
hard to do. It's hard to do that.
when you are, if you're trying to go for a character driven plot, a character driven narrative, you got to be ready for characters to make decisions that potentially hurt each other, and you have to, and the other part about that is hard to have a group of people coming to a table willing to accept that.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, this all goes in our constant refrain. I think, stream D&D, every person that is like worth listening to is constant refrain of session zeros or clutch for or pre-discussion of what kind of campaign people want to play in, what they're interested in, what they're comfortable with. And again, performative D&D for consumption and entertainment, or TTRPGs in general for consumption and entertainment, again, have to be there. That's the other thing. Almost every single one of the like, again, high consumable stuff, whether it's Dungeons and Daddies, whether it's NADPOD, whether it's Dimension 20 stuff, or Critical Role, all of those people were friends before and oftentimes had worked together in various capacities before. So not only did they have the benefit of knowing each other, but a lot of people that play, and especially online now, they're in looking for group situations. They get categorized with things that, like, or if you're at, like, say, a game store for their D&D night and stuff like that, they're meeting strangers through this, or even like work acquaintances and acquaintances. They don't know each other. They haven't spent time really like getting to know the person's vibe, and that can be very hard at a table when you're trying to make a character that would absolutely do certain things that you yourself would never make the choice to do. Yeah, I cannot stress enough how much easier, and I myself ascribe to it. Like, I'm constantly pivoting the plot with it, but like, I myself ascribe to, it's like, no, I'm gonna give you conflicts. I'm just gonna give you stuff to do. There's a lore, there's gods, there's a world, and this is what's happening, and you either need to save it or address the problem, right? And I'm a big fan of the GM doing the kind of more middle road, but even a little bit still more like character reactive story narrative challenge, where it's like, listen, as your characters pursue things, maybe front load those things, right? Like, work on those things, and it gives it more character agency, but the overall challenges or greater plot or mystery or conflict is still very much something that's impressed upon the players and their characters, not something that they themselves like primarily invent. I blame television for this. I blame the golden era of television, because golden era of television is almost always character-driven narrative, and it should be. That's good, but those are writers. They usually went to school for several years for this. They've spent decades honing this fucking craft.
Their lifetime, like, dissecting and understanding what it means to tell a story with a character's perspective.
And again, even then, that's a disingenuous version, because unless they're fully improving up the story, it's written, it's edited, it's all from the minds of one or a handful of people. So the actors are just mimicking what people are inventing in their mind as how it would go. So it's still very reactive. There's a lot of authors that kind of say, oh, well, I just kind of think about what this character I built would do. But at the end of the day, the author is still deciding all of the actions that happen and to get to the point of the plot. And so that's very different than, say, a table where you're going to sometimes run into conflict with what a player might want to do with their character, or an even more advanced player might have this is who my character is and what I must do as them, even though.
And I will say this, sorry to interrupt on that one.
Yeah, go for it.
Because of that is something that comes up a lot, and I think that like there's a saying that has almost become like a phrase that you cannot utter. Well, that's what my character would do. And I don't think it's so black and white. I don't
No,
think that the moment someone's like saying that's what my character would do, that's toxic. I
no.
don't. I do think it is a gray area, that when you start getting into that kind of space, you definitely need to be cautious with how you
Yeah.
approach it.
And you can check in with people and be like, okay, verbally, I'm going to take a moment at the table because I feel like my character would respond in a certain way, but
Like
it's going to be not positive. And you can
exactly, a
have
good
that
example
moment.
of that was in our own campaign with Through the Mill with Chevy when we're in the Timekeeper's Tower,
Yeah.
and Chevy is put in a clockwork room,
Yeah.
and you put that room in there. I feel like it was put there almost exclusively because Chevy was
Fully
going to fuck with it.
expecting that you and Josh would want to fuck with things.
Yeah,
I fully
and
expected that.
and you also knew that other people in the party would not want us to fuck with
Yep.
things. But luckily, this is kind of the low stakes problem
Yeah.
where we can be put at odds with the party without being put in full on conflict
Well,
with the party.
also, I put
And
that in a
that was
scenario where it was like there was going to be something that
yeah,
happened regardless. So, how you got there was more of a how do you want your journey to look like, not
yeah,
where is your destination, which is there was a map. I was going to do some shit at you.
yeah. Of course you were, but it's also just like a good example of, in my opinion, of where I could be doing something that is undeniably detrimental to everyone around me,
Yeah.
and yet it was not so egregious that it's not like I was turning around and stabbing a player in the back and pushing them into the gears.
You're not stealing someone's, you know, amulet of life regeneration or
Yeah.
something like that. You're not taking something, you're just making a situation a little bit more spicy in a situation where it was probably going to get spiced one way or the other. And it helped me out as a GM in that moment because it gave me like a fun, like mechanical frustration for the
And
NPC that was always going to fuck with you. It was
I mean
always
that's
going to
actually
fuck
that's
with you.
actually like to me that's good game design from a DM's
Yeah.
perspective. And it was one of my more fun moments
That
that I
fucking
had.
that fucking those fucking towers, that
Um,
fucking arcane engine region,
was interesting.
was such an easy. It's so satisfying when you can just be like reality is meaningless and I can do whatever I want to you. And I've given the excuse that it's like, well, this group is so magically powerful that like things can just happen in the world and I don't need like there to have been a spell that exists for it or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's just a fucking you're in the wild magic field area. So
Mhm.
shit just happens. Not
But
that it
like
was the same time. A
one of the
giant
thing
celestial bull just
I will say
rushes
this,
through.
I'm really surprised that you haven't you know I don't like the word catfished, but put like a hot seductive character to mislead our thirsty characters into a bad situation.
So I have this is a weird thing. We're gonna go into this right now, and
Okay.
I'll relate it into a narrative, and I might have to take a pause because I can't snooze the ad again, and it's gonna come in about a minute and 30.
Okay.
And so this is an interesting thing, right?
Yeah.
I do. It is a trope that a lot of
Yes.
tabletop players are very thirsty, and the first question they ask, and we have one that plays it up a lot. We have one who rolls to see if they're attracted to whatever NPC I bring, which I really like as a sort of like ultimate objectivist pansexual vibe, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just like it's the dice that decide whether I think this is hot or not. Love that energy,
Yeah.
but I specifically do not, as a story consumer, really have that much interest in like like in thirst for the point of thirst in that. I don't have that much, so my brain doesn't ever think about it.
I've never thought about it like that. What I'm trying to get at
Yeah.
is like, um, you know, to me, my character is into chaos. He wants to fuck with order.
Mhm.
You put a clockwork machine in front of him,
Yeah.
he's gonna fuck with it, and
Yep.
that's gonna pull the plot forward.
Mhm.
Um, for me, to me, putting thirst for thirst's sake is not what I'm talking about. For me, would be like, well, we're at like a banquet with like a
Mhm.
lord, and the lord has a gorgeous daughter, and like the one of the party's troublemakers is just like, he's a hound dog, so he's gonna go up and flirt with that character, and that's gonna create plot friction and compel
Create
the
a
story.
conflict. Yeah, I just I don't think, I think it's a, kind of like a personal taste thing. I
Yeah.
don't like any of those plots.
Okay.
I don't like honey trap plots unless
Honey trap plots are a difficult trope to navigate through.
yeah, it's difficult to navigate through, and I know that we're gonna literally have to interrupt ourselves the moment this pops with an ad is running, because I'm guessing a little pop-up box has shown up on Twitch.
I already saw that happen.
Okay, so okay, the ad is going now, and so I'll talk for the YouTube thing. So what's happened since we've switched back to Twitch is that these are just being downloaded wholesale and uploaded to YouTube as VODs. Same night, I have to do it. I have to literally start the download and the upload process while I'm talking to Brandon, or else I'll forget. And so I have a little thing on my OBS streaming software that shows me when the ads are happening, and I can control the ads to a degree. I can snooze them and stuff like that here and there. But inevitably, Twitch going to make its ad money, right? And so rather than having to give myself the hurdle of going through this VOD and editing it, which will only put one more barrier in front of me actually doing the task, and getting it over to YouTube, I'm just going to, when we talk about this, be like ad break, and we'll talk about something unrelated or they're unresponsive. There should only be one, maybe two ads through any of these VODs, and they're 2 minutes long each, and so they don't take up a lot of time of it.
I think ours has ended, by the way.
I've still got it showing up for 40 seconds, and so
Okay.
I'm gonna trust this, even if it's not perfectly timed with Twitch, because I'm fine if Twitch people come in and see us talking about it before we come back from ad. But I 100% believe that this could be delayed or not accurately
I'm
telling it.
already confirmed that we're streaming live.
Okay, we're back live. So yeah, I think the problem that I have with the honey trap thing on a tabletop is that I genuinely don't like, I think the problem I have with it is that I don't like disingenuously, even if it's just sexual, a flirtation or romance. And then I equally don't like in the version that you described, where it's like the innkeeper's daughter scenario, or innkeeper's son scenario, or lord's son or lord's daughter kind of thing. I equally don't like the idea of certain agencies being removed from certain NPCs from other NPCs without that being present and well, like, scripted. And so the closest I think I would get, I think the closest I probably would get to that scenario would be like, there is an NPC that's genuinely attracted to a member of the party, that the party going in already knows this will be a problem if anything is perceived as improprietous. And then that this is why the Regency era and Victorian era stories do not fly with me, because my brain says, but everyone's an adult, or people would know the vibe and what they could or couldn't get away with, right? And so, like, that's just a me thing. And so you're right that I haven't done that, but that is absolutely something that exists in a whole genre of of storytelling that isn't inherent to fantasy or something that you could just put in and be like, okay, you come upon a situation. I mean, it's played up for comedy a lot, but like party goes through, farmers offspring, somebody sleeps with them, gotta run off, right? Gotta run off before the farmer comes at you with a shotgun, right? I mean, Star Trek did it with the or not with the shotgun, but Star Trek did it with the whole like, and then Firefly did it again with the whole like, oh, you go to this community that's rural and suddenly somebody's married, because
I just watched Shanghai Noon the other day, and they did that with Jackie Chan and a native woman.
yeah, right. They walked around the fire together wearing flowers in their hair and held hands, and the characters didn't know, and like. I'm fine with that. Like, it doesn't upset me, but I'm not interested in that kind of storytelling. But it is a good genre trope if you don't have my natural distaste for it. But I also don't do a lot of romance in any of the stuff that
I'm generally not a fan of romance, and I've never really played thirsty characters. Um, that's just not my style. Um, but I do always like it when you take a character's compulsion and put something in front of them
Yeah.
that your characters are going to be compelled to be interested in because of their character's nature. That it's not necessarily a good scenario for them to be involved in.
Yeah,
Um,
using characters' motivations kind of against them, or their core sense of moral compass and ethics, and sort of character drives against them, whether those be in that description or whether it be Clockwork Engine. The tricky character is gonna want to see what they can do to kind of play with it a little bit. Put the red button in front of them, tell them not to push it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is good GMing. And again, another thing where you can narratively look outside of the genre, because it's like, let's say classic paladin character, classic hero, righteous hero character and everything, and it's like, all right, so you give them a trolley problem, right? You give them a trolley problem, and then I think High on Life just did this for comedy, where they chose the single individual and then the 5 NPCs all exposed that they're just monstrous people.
Okay.
Classic comedy trolley train problem, something that you're always going to have of the better or the good.
One person on one track and 5 people on the other.
Yeah, 5 people on the other, and then instead you do it in a village, and there's a village and there's bandits outside, and the bandits are harassing the village, and the village seems cool, and then the characters are naturally going to be like, we need to deal with the bandits, and then they go meet the bandits, and the bandits are actually like decent, right? And everything.
Okay.
And you don't present it Robin Hood style where it's like, obviously this is, taking from the rich and giving to the poor, or like make it things like that. You literally get the players on the side of the village first and then give them the moral quandary and make it a zero-sum game where it's like, you have to pick a side here, or else it's going to get worse for both. And whatever side you pick, the other side wins, right? Like that kind of moral dilemma shit that will oftentimes appear lightly in superhero shit, but usually in like thrillers or like crime dramas that aren't cop focused. Those are the kinds of things that like I think really hit the nail on the head in a sweet spot. Which I have not done, but I imagine would be good. I imagine would be good. I'm usually pretty open-handed with who my villains and who my normal people are, and it's basically, well, who has money and power? They're the bad guys, and who does not have money and power?
It can also be fun to just have a really despicable villain that your characters hate.
Yeah, don't be afraid to go classic film, and be like, this is a bad person, with bad intentions.
And you may
and
say,
they're bad.
Well, that's not realistic. The people aren't like that. Fuck
Tons
yeah,
of
they are.
Tons of we've all argued on the internet. Tons of people are like that. Yeah. Tons of people are genuinely bad.
There are people out there who are generally out for only themselves, to the damnation of others, and will burn the world to give themselves a penny.
So a very classic writing, I think, like a character study misquote, I think, is the idea that everyone is is the hero, like the hero of their own story, or more importantly, everyone feels like their actions are justified. And I think that oftentimes gets applied to make more complicated antagonist, and that's reasonable. It's reasonable in writing to do that because you want your antagonist to be viable and believable. On the flip side, if your antagonist genuinely believes in dark and terrible shit, then they are a bad person regardless of how they feel. And your players' characters are not in their mind. They're in their player characters' mind. They're in their player characters' minds. And so they're not going to come across that bridge or meet someone in the middle, right? If somebody's like, I'm going to if you present a thing where it's like, I want to take over the continent and I will do it by any means because I feel like war is a justified cost of mine gaining power, they may have personal motivations for what brings them satisfaction and comfort and why they psychologically got there. But like in that scenario, you just got to stop them. You just got to stop them. They're just going to murder a bunch of people to do it. And
not every story needs to be filled with moral depth or complexity to be interesting and fun.
Sometimes it's just a cool dungeon. Indiana Jones is great, right?
Indiana Jones is one of my favorite examples of like how you.
What's up, Prophet?
Yeah. Hey, Prophet. Do we know Prophet?
I know Prophet.
Cool.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones is like one of my favorite examples of like how you can do a D&D game. It kind of has a little bit of everything you expect in a D&D game.
Yeah.
You know, you have the dungeon delving, you have the powerful magic relics, you have the people who you're protecting, and then you have Nazis. Yes, you just want to punch a Nazi. And so sometimes it's just you should just give your party a Nazi to punch.
Mm-hmm. Just a despicable guy.
Yeah. Prophet put it right. You got to give the party a Nazi to punch, and everyone likes punching a Nazi. Well,
most people that you
like
want to play TTRPGs with like punching Nazis.
The fact that there are now I can say in the world that there are people who don't think punching Nazis is a good thing is upsetting to me.
Yeah, but I mean it is true, and so it's a great session zero discussion early on. It's
Do
like,
you all think it's okay to punch Nazis?
Are we? Do we believe that some people deserve a good punch regardless? Regardless, because they're a Nazi. And if the answer is yes across the table, you got a good table.
Yep.
I think we did.
Yes.
I think we did create the
Nazi. This is now a new official questions session zero.
Session zero question, the Nazi punch test. Would you punch a Nazi on site? Would your character punch a Nazi on site? And if somebody wants to play a character,
really want to punch a Nazi on site,
or like point at the Nazi and be like, somebody should punch that guy. I am bad at punching, right? Like that. That's the play, right? But like let's get back a little bit into like narrative inspirations. And so World War II is a great genre of film. To pull or characters from World War II is to pull narrative inspirations. Like you said, Indiana Jones is like straight up and down, like what you would want in an adventuresome TTRPG campaign. You've got all kinds of cool shit in it, and you could literally just like rebrand and lift it, and it would be a fun time at a table. And everything. But if you want to go like a little bit further. Right, if you want to go a little bit further and you want to be like like pull some of those genre things out of it, what if you have let's do your classic kind of like World War II film sort of thing. What if you have your party members, be they fantasy, sci-fi, or whatever, stumble upon a group of people that are going to storm a beach and everything. And so now you get to narrate something which totally goes in almost every genre of TTRPG, of a large, be it a small group of people like a mob group war or something, group of people going into a scenario that most of them feel like they're not going to walk away from. And your party is there to protect as many of them as possible, right? Because, of course, your party is on the side of the good guys, the bad guys are the Nazis. And so you got to protect as many of them as possible. And maybe this doesn't even have anything to do with the goal point of your campaign. They just, in their travels, they're like, well, fucking, there's been a war here for like the last 10 years, and that's why we normally don't go to this region of the continent, but like it's happening now, right? Now take that even further and mash it up with a necromancer lich sort of situation, where instead of it being like a lich that controls, or like like a Strahd that controls the region and already has power, they're looking to take it, and there's already tons of people that have tried to stand up on them, and they're in this massive fight, and maybe your characters can turn the tide of war, and now you can start thinking in the terms of the World War II genre, and how it structures those kinds of large battles differently than Lord of the Rings, how it structures those kinds of ongoing conflicts, and yank that into your fucking fantasy narrative. Sci-fi is actually a lot better at just like doing this and acknowledging that like war is ongoing and hellish. But like big high fantasy, big tabletop adventures don't really do this. And again, your character is not even necessarily having this be their main plot or something that they must be sure goes well, but having it be a thing that they're involved in on the journey to their main plot. And the enemy isn't even like the big bad, it's another problem, is so interesting as a challenge, as long as there's a reward, plot wise, equipment wise, whatever, a reward for kind of doing this more serious this more lethal serious side quest, right? But yeah, and then you're into it again. Or if you want to go, maybe you have to do maybe you just do the movie Clue, but you do it in a again, you do it in a space station, or you do it in an old western town, right? At a gambling hall, or you do it in a subterranean community.
You know what? I just thought would be a fun story to do. Have your players be in the story of Battle Royale.
Yeah,
they get abducted up with a bunch of other people, and are basically pitted against each other in a way, but also would definitely would actually be benefited if they rallied together to go against the people who are doing this to them. That'd be
absolutely. There's a battle royale, Royal Rumble conflict in an area somewhere, a war world scenario, a battle world scenario, right? Like these exist and they make sense in these sorts of genres. They absolutely make sense in them.
And I agree with Prophets about giving people being careful to give people personality. I'm sorry, I should move back over to the middle. My apologies.
I just keep adjusting it where it's like, where's Brandon gonna go?
Here we go. I'll just
slide off. No, there we go.
I'll keep my blue hair background by the blue behind.
There you go. That's the sweet spot. Yeah, you do always. Again, when borrowing from the genre, pay attention to what makes the better movies of the genre, right?
What I would say with Prophet's comment there about giving Siegers personality and stuff like that is I wouldn't necessarily try and give multiple characters a lot of personality in that scenario.
Yeah,
I'd probably would
one or two, give them really strong personalities, and then you can have a whole crew of other people that don't really have names or personalities, because if you try and do too much, you're going to bog down your game. You're going to bog down your game. You're going to confuse yourself. You're going to inevitably make it a more important part of the game.
And people who are good, reasonable players are not going to ask for all of all of these NPCs' names.
Yeah.
And the person who says, I want to know who all these people are, I say, go to hell.
Always. Yeah, like you get to know who these people are. Like, if I have you go into a tavern and have you talk to a barkeep, and I didn't have any name for that barkeep and can't come up with on the spot, that's on me. I knew you were going to do that and everything. But if I have you go to a band of mercenaries and you talk to the leader and you know their name, and then you go have conversation with other mercenaries to get an idea of who the leader is, if you can trust them, like, I might give them names that I forget literally at the end of the session, but they're all going to be like, this is Kevin, this is Margaret, this is Chris, this is also Chris. Chris
like
is a super common
lieutenant
name
or something that is.
Yeah, there's a second. There's always a second there. A great example of this is in Low Armor Cast. They get onto a ship, and the ship has several crew members, and I have 5 named NPCs on that crew because they were going to be on the ship for like a few sessions. Versus in Through the Mill, they've been underground in a whole area for several sessions and will be for several more. And so far, they've met 2 named NPCs, one of which they only know the title of, and the other one was supposed to be a monster that they fought. And then that's it. That's 100%. They have their crew. I made them name them. That was a very clever move on my part for multiple reasons. But like in reality, I was not going to spend time. If I'd not come up with that, there would have been 2 named crew members, and then the other 8 crew members that would have been like, well, it's a cat person or it's like a weird, shady human being. And those are the 2 crews that you hired.
Yeah.
Recon, could I suppose be any specialist type like a mecha pilot? I'm reading some of these in the next session of this because we're back on Twitch. I'm gonna throw the chat in the overlay so that people can see them in the video. Okay. 3 officers, grunt, recon, ideally, who are going to be on different parts of the battle. Yeah, and you can absolutely do that too, depending on like how much of the battle your characters are involved in. Because I also love the idea of like triple blending genres. So it's a fantasy setup. I'm doing a World War II style battle. Your characters are helping protect those people, and then I'm doing it Game of Thrones style, where the battle happens and you're following your characters, but there's all this other shit happening, and it mattered more who you talked to at the beginning and what the initial setup was for, and then the rest is just dramatics. You don't really get into the nitty gritty of it, and you're there for a night. And then then the battle's over in the morning, and or like the main thrust of it, and your party has to get going. And so they know the ally, a couple people from the ally side, a couple names from the enemy side, and then that's it. That's all they saw.
Another good old fact, like another good thing to do in these kind of scenarios, as I love a good old infiltration mission.
Oh yeah,
like good old infiltration mission into like a military base or a lord's castle,
spaceship, corporate building.
Yeah, breaking in, getting something or someone, and getting out.
Mm-hmm. It's so good. It's so good. Rescuing the hostage is always good. Gathering information is always good, or stealing some information is always good. It's a little different than a heist, because I think the whole point of it is that you have to infiltrate, and then you have to exist within that world convincingly for a bit, however long it is to get to your goal, and then exit that world privately, which is sort of heisty, but heists are a lot more like planning and not being noticed if you can. And you can kind of blend them. You can mix the infiltration part into the heist. It usually is Ocean's 11 style. But like doing a pure infiltration where it's like you all have to pretend to be these people from this area and like operate socially and privately and secretly in this thing for this session, maybe this next session, and then you have to get out,
sneak in through the sewers and working through the back rooms of whatever place you're going through.
All right, so now I'm gonna tax your mind though, Brandon.
Okay.
Yeah, characters you save, right? Often brings that up. If you name some NPCs and you give it stakes like you're helping save these things, you can literally, as a GM, be like, I'm going to name these NPCs, and depending on how well they do, some or all of them could die. That they know the name of. But I'm going to tax your mind here, Brandon. I'm going to give you the tax, and we're going to trade off here until I feel like we've run out of steam on it.
Okay.
Give me some genre styles, whether they be television, film, or books, some sort of like challenges that wouldn't normally show up in sprawling epics of fantasy, sci-fi, urban fantasy, those kinds of things, but that would be interesting for your party members
Do
to
you mind
land
if
in.
I step away and go walk up to my movie wall? That'll be much easier for
Yeah,
me to think about stuff.
I'll start off.
Okay.
All right. Your group is traveling in kind of a rural, sprawling area. Let's say this is fantasy, sprawling area. There are forests and hillsides, beautiful mountain paths, and they come upon a bucolic town, a village, and everything in the nice, warm summer weather. And then a wildfire starts happening, and not like a wildfire like in the town, but in the acreage north of the town, and the wind starts blowing it into town, and it's spreading like it does here in the West Coast, and specifically in the California, Oregon area. And so now your players have to join the fire team to try and prevent this fire from encroaching upon the town. Whole emergency firefighter response genre, like there for the fucking taking. There's a firehouse, there's a fire crew. Maybe your group joins this fire crew. You do it for a few sessions. There's not like an evil mage or something. This is a natural disaster that they're trying to prevent and stuff. And yeah, they've got magic that works for like 60 feet, 120 feet, right? But that doesn't matter on a multi-acreage fire. That takes work and persistence and coordination. And now you've got all the tropes of people being trapped in like a watchtower and you got to get them out, or maybe a hermit doesn't want to leave their home, but you're not sure it's going to do that. And then maybe a building that they're in collapses and they've got to rescue them and there's smoke everywhere and stuff. That to me is an exciting interaction. And it's something I never see in a TTRPG thing. But there are like 3 different ongoing current firefighter procedurals I can name off the top of my head that are on television right now that are ripe with all kinds of how they explain fires and fighting a massive fire and what that challenge looks like. And again, your magic is good in enclosed areas, but it's terrible at dealing with natural disasters.
Yeah, unless you have like changed weather and you can summon a rainstorm.
Yeah, it's under a rainstorm. And even then you could be like, yeah, there's a rainstorm and it's coming in on there, but it's going to take minutes to half an hour to spread. And by that time, the fire will have ramped over into this valley. How much rainstorm can you summon, right? Can you summon a straight up full overcast for 20 miles in every direction storm?
I'd have to look up how much the change weather spell can cover, but it's a pretty, I think it's like a 7th or 8th level spell.
Yeah,
so
it's a big one. So yeah, you don't want to introduce. Also, almost all of these challenges
would be better for low-level parties.
happen sub 12, like 12 and below.
I was thinking of one, and that it kind of takes an old D&D or fantasy trope and flips it on its head, very specifically, and that is the trope of having to seek out a magical creature to harvest something from it. I think is a pretty normal one. Find the vile monster, kill it, and take its
glands, Monster Hunter style.
Yeah. I would flip it on the head, and suddenly like you're approached by a single druid who is telling you about this creature that's the last of its kind, and it has valuable parts that people are trying to kill and poach it for. And maybe this druid's like, there's actually more of them left, but we need to get them together so that we can help them repopulate. But I need your help to get me that creature through the wilderness whilst you're being tracked and hunted by poachers.
So good. That is absolutely a worthwhile campaign idea. And again, not something I commonly see or have ever played in. Okay, I'm going to give you another one. And this one is straight cribbing from a movie. And I agree with you, Riot. We talk a lot about going to indie RPGs for systems. and stuff like that. But you could crib the Flashpoint Fire Rescue board games system, and there's even some of these where if you get real cute and clever with it, you can bust out a board game and just have your players play the board game to resolve the conflict, depending on the nature of the board
I
game and the
believe that was
conflict.
the point between the most recent Dragonlance release
Yeah,
and
there's supposed to be a board game
there's
for
like a
it.
tabletop war game
Yeah, war game
that's
for
meant
it
to be built into that's meant to be
in it.
played on its own or played
Yeah,
with it.
and so here's my pitch though. All right, and this could literally be a whole like mid to like novella sized campaign. You become aware, whether it's through a wizard or a telescope or scientists or something, but you become aware in a fantasy genre or maybe a Western fantasy genre that there is a meteor coming for the physical realm that you're on, the planet, whatever, and it is a life-ending event. And you, as a party, have to figure out how to get up into space and stop that meteor from hitting the planet, Armageddon style. And like that, you can lift Armageddon's plot in whole, fucking repaint that shit, and put it into a fantasy thing, and that would never I would never think of that well in fantasy brain. I would think of some evil sorcerer that's trying to end the world. I would think of some organization cults trying to summon an ancient demon, or even an eldritch god that has to come through some sort of gate. But not just, oh, here's a meteor and it's coming to the planet. And for whatever reason in this fantasy world, some intelligent person knows about it and your characters are the ones recruited for it. This would be the whole thing, probably. This would be the whole arc of the whole thing. But like then figuring out how to get a ship up into space and then figuring out what you need on that, and then you land on the meteor and there's fun shit there, a la Star Wars, space worms and shit and bats and things like that. Right? Like there's a lot. So there's one. Your turn, Brandon. What do you got?
I'm sorry. I'm still kind of. I'm trying to my best to both listen to you and also populate an idea at the same time. Let me see. I had one here a second ago. One that would be on a smaller plot scale. It is this one's very much a D&D. I rarely see it where like um I'm just looking at like a haunted house movie, and I'm just thinking like, um, have this is a very simple one, but just like having your players be targeted by a revenant of one of the people they killed in the past. I don't actually see that used all that often. People talk about it, but I've
But
never actually seen anyone
I've
actually
never
use
played
it.
in it. I don't think I've heard it in a campaign that I've listened
Yeah,
to.
like people have used revenants as points in their game, but never has like the revenant been like. Have I ever seen the revenant specifically target
And doing it
the
in a horror
players?
haunted house, like poltergeisty kind of way, is an
Mhm.
interesting way to implement it, because the closest I've seen is in spoilers for Dimension 20 Fantasy High Season 2, I think. Yeah, 2. They go to hell and they're on a ship, and a bunch of their enemies that they've killed find out that they're in hell and they appear on the ship. But that's more like a almost like a boss rush battle than it
Mhm.
is like a haunting. And I love the idea of like a haunting curse sort of horror genre kind of thing implemented out in the idea of a world that's already created systems where spectral things exist and can physically affect the world around them. And so you're taking something that D&D is already prepared to do, and you're just giving it the flavor and the style of like, all right, you're in this keep, and is like some wise old person is like, the barrier between the afterlife and the physical realm here are thin and everything. And then one of the characters that you've harmed in the past that hates you, just hates you, for killing them. is creating problems. And again, keeping in mind, I'm not going to do this like a fantasy thing. I'm not going to do this like an adventure thing where it's like you're going to find it, discover it immediately, and then fight it. But that it's going to haunt you, and it's going to be a mystery, and you're not going to understand really like who's doing it or why or what it's about until you get deeper into the problems it creates and everything. And it makes a tavern or an inn or a manse or or like someplace that your party is staying, a fucking haunted mansion or a haunted house horror mystery in like with very little. You don't have to come up with you don't have to really come up with new systems. D&D already has these kinds of monsters.
Literally, the revenant after being killed comes back after several days if you don't do something.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to come up with another one for you right here, right now.
Okay.
All right. Your big bad, and this is a little bit of a content warning. Your big bad is a black market crime lord kingpin. And you are in a classic fantasy or like a Conan the Barbarian, like fucking like all the way back to the Stone Age, but something in that direction. And they are a black market crime lord.
Mm-hmm.
And in the black market crime lordness, you cannot and are not powerful enough to deal with their organization.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have to do is pursue the people that they've harmed or that have a negative situation, including but not as inherently part of the law enforcement branch of that area, and create a sort of counter gang to weaken their criminal organization structure. And if you have a varied party, and certainly if you have rogues and bards in the group, or those types of characters, you can have constant little moral questions. How far are you willing to go for the greater good? And what happens now that you've created this power vacuum, and do you just step into it and do a different, less violent or less cruel version of a black market syndicate organization in there? And you don't do it Godfather style. You do it Breaking Bad style.
Okay.
And your characters don't necessarily have to go through that same arc, but they do have to acknowledge that it's like there's there, and you kind of play on the fact that the players see themselves as heroes.
Yeah.
And just keep delivering consequences for them as they do it, and then just sort of walk away. And again, if you keep the genre in mind of like a Breaking Bad sort of story, and crime, and you not being strong enough on the outset to just murder the crime, you're gonna do some really interesting things.
So one of the things that I think this is also something that I think D&D is really well built for, but I actually don't see done well all that often, is pitting your players against a monster that's way more powerful than them that cannot be solved with brute force.
Mm-hmm.
And the perfect example I can think of this is take the movie Tremors and have your players get stuck in the middle of nowhere against a giant purple worm that's digging through the earth looking for them. And then suddenly you have a bunch of low level characters, and you very quickly establish if you stay off the ground, you won't get attacked.
Yeah, you let them get to the Tremors conceit very quickly, and then see how they solve that problem. Because they can't kill it. They're not going to win that fight.
Or they can't kill it until they get to the cache of explosives.
Yeah,
that they
can't kill it directly. They got to get clever with it. They can't just fucking stab it or fire it. Right? They got to do something interesting with there. I agree with you. What's funny is the monster and horror genre are so good for just like tweaking already existing shit and just being like, this all exists. And you don't have to even tonal it. like that. It's more about structuring it like those genres than it is about being tonally those genres, which I think a lot of people mistake in their genre mashups. And I think a lot of those indie RPGs try to address that style of it, which is like, I want a really grim, gritty fantasy like Morkborg, right? Um, I want to do that, right? And so there's a whole like it provides the tone, and you don't need the tone to necessarily come along. You need the pacing, conflicts, and likely scenarios, and the relationship adjustments that can come out of that. That's what you're looking for. The plot beats and stuff more than there, because quick aside, and if you'll look at the stream, the ads are coming here fairly soon. But quick aside, almost every genre is essentially assembled from a handful of plot beats and rhythms, and then a tone is applied to it. And that's really it. That's essentially like there's the locale and the sort of like world technology and a handful of other things that provide the setting. But essentially, a horror genre is just several plot beats with parameters around them, and then a tone, and that's all. Because like that's the trick. So you can swap these in a lot of ways without taking the tone, or without taking the setting, or taking the setting but not taking the plot beats, but taking the tone. You want to do a superhero story, but you want the monsters to be really gruesome. All right, well that's kind of horror-y. It's kind of Cthulhu-ian, but like it's a tone. But if you keep the sort of superhero movie tone, then it's just them defeating giant bad monsters. That's it. Pacific Rim did this really well, in my mind, where they were a genre setup. I think the ads are going now. Unrelated. Cyberpunk translate to X-Punk, which is how you get Steam Magi punks. We'll talk about that when we come back, Riot. But unrelated to this, it says that an ad is in progress. If you're subscribed, I don't think you're subscribed.
I am subscribed. I am subscribed.
Okay, so you're probably not seeing an ad if you're subscribed.
Okay.
There's still some ads that I don't control, but that's probably why your ad beat was off. But like,
makes sense.
I'll just jump in on this then. Pacific Rim did this really well because it's a masterful genre setup of giant kaiju versus giant robot, right? Masterful. And yet, one of the best parts of the fighting in the first Pacific Rim movie, not the second one, of the fighting, is when you see the main robot, Romani Danger, which I will just rename it now, to move off the term, Romani Danger. When you see the main robot walk up to the kaiju, dragging, what was it, like a train section, like a 2x4, and it was going to be a brawler. And you were like, this is not how we see monsters fight giant robots in almost anything. But in this, it's a Duke fest. And that was exciting in that moment. That is one of these absolute moments of the film where it's like, this is cool, and the music stingers were right for it, and the framing was right for it, and you were just like, I know what this is. And it's a thrilling thing to see in content. So like even with that, like that's a great example of it's being like, that little piece would usually come with tons of other plot stuff and tons of like context, and it doesn't. It's just, we're gonna lift out of like a different kind of fight scene.
One of the things that we have to point out with almost all TTRPGs is that these stories are necessarily have adventure elements to them. So certain types of genres are just not going to work.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to really be able to get away with a comedy, or
unless you're all very funny. Yeah.
Unless you're a series of comedians and you're doing that. It's just not going to work for you. So specifically sticking towards what we consider genre stories, which is fantasy, science fiction, adventure,
Western,
Western,
horror,
horror. Yeah, those all really lend themselves
they
very
mix well
naturally.
together.
Yeah. I was just thinking of, like, if you want to take the story of Terminator and turn that into a fantasy setting, suddenly you have your like an evil wizard create an unstoppable golem that like ignores most types of damage. Um, and suddenly you have like, but it's not very fast, right? And so your encounters with it, you have to figure out, I'm not going to kill this thing, I'm going to just stop it somehow.
Yeah, I got to stop it or I got to get away from it.
Yeah.
And then they can be on a wagon and the thing can start sprint running after them. You can
Yeah.
completely just lift Terminator 2.
I love lifting stories.
Just lift them. So I want to send up Riot's most recent comment, or a couple comments. Cyberpunk, which is a genre, right? Specific subgenre of sci-fi, translates to X-punk, which is how you get like Steam, Magi, and other kinds of punks. Exactly. What is it called? And they also mentioned that The Boys is just sort of superpower punk. And you're not wrong. And I'm interested to see how the spin-off series, Generation V, which is about young kids going to kind of like a school for powered people that's also owned by the giant bad corporation in The Boys. Like, I'm very excited to see what they do with that, because I think they'll lean more into the punk side of it. Because it's young people. But like I 100% agree. I think you can take things even from a lot of classic comedies, though, and you can throw them in as like moments in a game. And I think that's really, really interesting. Here's the example I'm going to give. We've all watched a lot of cartoons in our childhoods and adulthoods in some cases. We've all seen the door gag of there's a room or a hallway, there are several doors. This is oftentimes described as Scooby-Doo. They did not invent this, but they did master it, where they're opening and closing doors and running through that, or running through different doors, trying to chase or be chased by a monster, and it's constantly doing that. As the DM, you can set that scene, and in a D&D fantasy world, those are magical portals. And there's some sort of spell that happens that makes all the doors kind of loop in on each other, and everyone's just like opens door 1, comes out door 7, runs across to door 6, comes out of door 2. And you can make that a puzzle even if you want to, or you could just have a momentary beat with it, right? So you can take like little bits of comedy, but you can't take the genre wholesale. Again, unless you're comedy writing, like Dungeons and Daddies does it all the time, but they're mostly comedic content creators. And so they do that. They also are the most, like, I love all the conversations around things like Critical Role or other things being pre-scripted, and Dungeons and Daddies just openly says that, like, they'll record something and sometimes the bit won't have worked out and they'll just redo that section and then put it in their podcast, because their podcast is supposed to entertain. And I love that energy from them. Where they're just like, it's not that they go and write something out. They're just like, that didn't play. That joke's not going anywhere. Let's start over and let's everything.
Revisit that. Let's revamp it.
Let's take two, and then they just run it again, right? And it's not like the whole session, although they have scrapped whole session ones from it and just redone it upon listening to it, being like, this didn't hit what we wanted it to hit. But generally, or they'll go back and they'll listen to the end of the session and they're like, we didn't like how that did it, so when we meet again to record, we're just gonna redo that, and I'm gonna change up some of the things as the GM kind of thing. And I love that they do that, because they are a for entertainment performative podcast, and their point, they want to be funny and punchy and good in a certain specific way, and so they're willing to do that. And then if you're a Patreon, you can hear the like whole unedited stuff and all of the bits that didn't make it in. And it's not like they do like everything 2 or 3 times, A lot of times, most of a session will just be straight up what it was. And lots of sessions, that's the whole session. But the fact that they openly admit that, and there's all these people that are like, I think Critical Role is scripted, which is wild that you think anyone could script 4 hours of tabletop content weekly. But
Don't they live stream it too?
they did. They live play it. And they would of course edit out a technical difficulty that like comes upon them, but they now live play it as a pre-recording so they can do things like content warnings and stuff at the beginning, but it's still a continuous actual play session, like any podcast is, right, where they clean up the audio and stuff like that.
Do you think that you could, if you have any idea how hard it would be to put that production together, even scripted? It'd be more difficult to do scripted.
It would be so wildly difficult to do scripted. But yeah, I think what's interesting here is, while talking about inspirations from it, whether you're wholesale lifting a movie plot or a television series thing, and then you're just like fucking sprinkling some genre on top of it to make it fun and RPG. The key here is it's an argument that I actually think we normally wouldn't make, is there's some fun to hacking that into something that it doesn't necessarily go to. Normally, I would say go find the indie RPG that absolutely does this genre perfectly. Mm-hmm. But the idea here is that you're not really sticking to that genre. You're putting it in something else, or you're using it as an inspiration.
An arc of your story
with it. And so that requires a little bit more hacking, whether that's mechanics or whether it's just like putting a dash of something in it. But yeah, like a recent season of Dimension 20 did this, where they did a Regency era thing using an indie RPG, mashed it into D&D and did it in the Fey Court. And so it's like all the Victorian Fey Court or Regency era intrigue and courtly mannerisms in the Fey realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
Fun,
right? And it worked. It worked like gangbusters. They took things from both systems, and it worked really well. Now they're professionals again, and they're very entertaining. Yeah. But like the foundation of what they did would be fun at any table. And I think that that's the interesting play of like lifting from genre, because all Dimension 20 is the classic for this, because that's literally the entire purpose of them as a tabletop campaign for entertainment, is that they take the thing that you're used to and then they slam it into another genre, and then they do it for 6 to 20 episodes depending on the arc. And it's anthology based. So their very first thing, which is a fantasy D&D thing, is slammed into a John Hughes movie and set in a high school called Fantasy High. Then they took superhero genres, slammed that into urban fantasy, and did that for Unsleeping City in New York. Because it's New York and superhero stuff happens in New York, but they're all mages. They all have magic, and there's, a dream realm and everything like that, which is very urban fantasy, right? And then they took Crown of Candy is more just like what if Game of Thrones, but with food, and that's a little simpler. But like even now, their current campaign is story fairy tale book characters in a darkening time, told narratively, comedy still, because that's like their point, but told narratively in horror. And it's very unsettling to watch. Some of the concepts in it are very bad and do not make me happy to think about. But it's very entertaining. And so like, it's a great genre. I mean, fucking, they almost did their first spinoff with Matt Mercer playing as a character, which is Escape from Blood Keep, which is a Lord of the Rings pastiche, as almost an office comedy. It's almost, because everyone kind of behaves character-wise like regular employees of the Dark Lord, who's just suddenly been, the ring went into Mordor and now the guy's gone and all of the generals have to figure out how to survive and what happens next. And it's very comedic, and so that gives it some moments of like Office and Office Space and Parks and Rec kind of moments. But also, like all of that, all of it works. And so you can take little beats or little pieces, but not genre wholesale. I mean, you can't do what they did with Mandalorian, which is what they did with the original Star Wars, which is let's take Westerns, which are just lifting from samurai films, and let's take Westerns, but Star Wars. And we're just gonna literally the first season of The Mandalorian is just a series of old Western movies. Oh no, there's bandits attacking the town. Oh no, there's a monster attacking the town. There's a beast attacking the town, and the town is at conflict with the indigenous people. And they have to learn to work together. Or oh, there's a competing bounty hunter for a bounty on a potential prisoner. Like it's all just Western movies in plot form, but within the Star Wars universe. So like television does this, films do this, books do this. Your D&D campaign, your Pathfinder campaigns, your Starfinder campaigns.
I think the D&D, I would say D20 style games really lend themselves well to. When we talk about horror, I should say that D&D really lends itself well to creature feature style horror.
Yeah, creature features.
It doesn't really lend itself well to slasher horror or supernatural horror all that much.
Not intrinsically, not as obviously certain. Certainly,
it'd be much more difficult to pull off, and you might want to look up a system that's built to handle those kind of things, like Monster of the Week or Shiver.
Yeah. But even then, if you want to, and if you're playing a longer campaign, looking at those systems, lifting some things from it, and then throwing it into your D&D game is not the worst.
I mean, any person who plays D&D long enough is going to end up having a Frankenstein's monster of their own system.
Yeah, usually.
And if really the best way to make your best system is to know about all these other systems. I'm just a really big advocate for people to learn about other systems.
Yeah, it's weird that we're discussing this because a lot of these things again are addressed in indie RPGs that are centered around delivering these genres better than just throwing them into that. But I think that's the thing, is that so often I see campaigns and they're like, okay, we're gonna do I'm gonna pick on D&D here. So there's Curse of Strahd, which is like the best pre-written adventure for D&D, right? It's
also, I will say this about D&D modules: they are great, like settings and fights and stuff. They do not really write themselves well to be played from the DM's perspective. It's just kind of a mess.
It's always a mess.
How to run them.
Yeah. Modules for me are much harder to run than just inventing shit. Yeah. But so Strahd, right, and everything like that. I'm gonna pick on this. So the problem with Strahd, right, is that it's very D&D's take on like a grim, dark, sort of Helsingy kind of horror with a vampire at the top and a lot of bad things happening. But it's still very much Dungeons and Dragons tonally and everything like that. But like your version, your send up of a haunted house, again, the pieces are all there, but no one's telling you how to narrate that. But I think the problem is when people take to their campaigns and they're like, I'm going to run this campaign, their initial thought, and reasonably so, is what kind of genre or style is this campaign? Is it a horror? Is it supposed to be funny? Is it supposed to be adventuresome? Are they supposed to be like gods? Are they supposed to be underpowered? Is it a survivalist campaign? All of those things. And then that's where the conversation stops. And in reality, the answer should be, okay, what's the overall tone of the campaign, which kind of hits on all those marks and everything. And now what can I pull into that tone from something else and make it work in that tone, in that setting? And that is where you start looking at indie RPGs for how they handle things and how they encourage that tone, because that's something that almost every indie RPG in these genres are better at, which is, hey, GM, would you like some help on like how to phrase this shit? Would you like some help on like how to like construct it? Not all of them, certainly, but a lot of them are like, you're playing masks. Would you like to know how to tell coming of age superhero stories? Here's some guidance for you, right? And those the DM's handbook talks a lot about different kinds of encounter concepts or like best practices for DMing. it doesn't need to really tell us how to run fantasy. We've seen Lord of the Rings, right? We've seen the archetypes so many times.
No.
What?
I said Lord of the what?
Yeah, it's a little book series.
So it's a very
Written.
niche,
It's a
not
niche.
very popular,
It's
not
not
very well known
huge.
about.
Not huge. A lot of people say they're stealing a lot of things from Lewis Carroll's The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe series, and they're not wrong. But really, it's no. What I'm saying is, Lord of the Rings is pretty good, but it's no Bible. Anyway, also feel free to lift stories
let's be real,
from the
but it's
Bible.
not the Bible TV show that we watched actually slapped
I
pretty
mean,
good.
yeah, I mean, I would argue that was still the best pilot we watched.
That was
possibly.
the best pilot we watched on Pilot Treason.
On Pilot Treason was the History Channel's miniseries, The Bible. I don't like, I wouldn't like recommend it to people unless they were interested in that kind of concept of it's like, no, but like watch this as like from a storytelling perspective. This is way better than like a Bible in print.
My favorite part was when the angels were like samurais in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah. That pilot moved in ways that most pilots don't. I'd put Bible. People should study that. Weirdly enough, don't read the books though. It's much worse. If you ever say that the adaptation is always worse than the book, just watch the miniseries, The Bible. It's way better than the book.
Yeah, it doesn't get hung up on doing the he who begot he, who begot she, and he and they and.
It doesn't have all of the letters of Corinthians.
You don't have to go through all the lineage and all of the backwards rules. Like
Deuteronomy is nowhere to be found. Anyway, but weird amount of Bible. Every time I think about the miniseries, and I do, it sometimes comes to mind. I'm like, you know what popped? That first episode of the Bible. Like, if I wasn't already familiar with the source text, I might be like, let me see what this Bible is all about as a show. I wouldn't go to church or anything.
Episode, we never got along to Psalms, okay, Prophet. So we don't know if there was dance numbers.
I gotta assume that they had the dance numbers. I assume.
I'm not going to watch it to find out, but I'm going to just assume.
I am going to confirm for all three of us that are discussing this right now, including Riot in the chat. I'm going to just confirm it right now. 100% definitely a dance number somewhere in the Bible. The miniseries from the History Channel that came out like several years ago.
We watched that. I think we watched it on Netflix though.
Yeah, I think it was on Netflix. Or Amazon. It might have been on Amazon. I don't remember.
I do miss doing Pilot Treason. That's the fun stuff.
It definitely was. But it's a load of work, and it also involves us watching a lot of terrible pilots.
Maybe we do it like once a year.
Yeah, where it's just like what notoriously bad. I would have done that with you to rewatch the pilot of 911, the procedural emergency response drama, just because I believe in the pilot. A baby gets trapped in like the water pipes of an apartment building and they have to chop off a snake's head. Like, it's a wild first responder pilot. I'm like, where do you go from here? There's a whole baby that was like, it's wild. Anyway, and then the snake, like they CG'd it. You get to see the fireman's axe go through the head, and completely decapitate a snake. It's fucking like a boa constrictor style snake. It's wild.
What a strange episode. What a strange show.
What a strange pilot. Centered around an actress that left it after the first season. But it's on season 9 now because procedurals they be printing the money.
And they're dirt cheap to make.
Yeah, by comparison, they also usually get back funding from various fire departments and states.
Yeah, gotta have that propaganda.
But I think we've talked a fair amount about narrative inspiration and ways to structure in stuff and like just pick pieces of genres or lift whole fucking plots from things that are outside of whatever the like niche you're playing in, and then wedge them into that niche, whether you have to go all the way to systems or it's just narrative structure stuff. And use that to inspire yourself and stop trying to reinvent the wheel or figure out again a clever way to retell the same fantasy trope in your fantasy RPG. You don't even have to be clever about it. You don't
Now I just
have to
want
be
play
that
an
clever
episode.
about it.
Now I just want to play the session of Tremors of D&D.
I mean, I could, like, that would be a very easy thing to do where Through the Mill is, but you guys are too high level. The level of
we would wipe the floor with a freaking purple worm.
Yeah, the level of unkillable monsters I would have to send to you to make that a real threat. But yeah, I could absolutely do that. I think I'd sooner adapt for a more powerful party. What's it called? Fuck me. What's the that's a horror thing about being extremely quiet.
Quiet Place?
Quiet Place. Where I'd sooner do a Quiet Place situation where you're at, where it's just like the monsters respond to sound. And have a period of time where you're in the quiet place and you can't make sound. And I wouldn't even have you necessarily roll stealth checks. I would have like a table of potential things and then events that you could react to possibly prevent sound from coming out of them. Because that way I'm not relying on dice for the overall conceit, and I'm giving you challenges to resolve. Rather than being like, oh, you're in full plate armor, so stealth at disadvantage. Oh, I guess the Quiet Place monster, Mr. Quiet, gets you. I don't know. I haven't seen Quiet Place. I assume there's a monster named Mr. Quiet.
Mr. Quiet.
He wears a fun little top hat. It would have been a better movie. I haven't seen it at all, but I know that a gentleman in a suit that comes to get you if you make noise and like knocks on your door like a door-to-door salesman from Fallout and is like, well, you know the rules. Don't speak. Only Mr. Quiet's allowed to talk after you've broken the rules. Come with me. Is a very exciting horror film. Mr. Quiet. That's a terrible third movie in the trilogy of
Mr.
The Quiet Place.
Welcome to my place.
Welcome to my place. It's sound treated. But yeah, I think we've given enough seeds for this.
The short end of it is steal your plot.
Steal plot, just steal stuff. Steal it from unexpected locations. Again, I think hospital dramas are a great place to steal some plots from. I think, obviously, any of the stuff that is very popular on television. Maybe there's an episode that you like. Doctor Who episodes. It's literally like they're trying to give you TTRPG plots. Fucking weeping angels are like one of the best D&D monsters in existence. And
yet they're all solved by you just going like this.
Yeah, they're all solved by a single eye looking. And once you know the conceit, you can probably do it. Except for when the power goes out, or complete darkness overtakes the land. But like, yeah, there's tons of plots. Steal from kids shows, right? And not just for the jokes, not just for the memes, not just as like ideal things, but like wholesale lift them. Mm-hmm. And put them in. You'll have a much easier time. Prep will be easy, especially if you're running a long campaign and you're like worried that it's getting a little stale and everything. This is where this kind of stuff shines. Because you're like, okay, they've already been through a couple dungeons. They've already fought bandits and leaders and stuff like that. And I'm still getting them to the big bad, but like, I want to mix it up a little bit. Cool. And last bit of advice I'll give you. If you're completely for lack of anything to do, anime has given us the beach episode. Just do a beach episode. Just do a fucking beach episode. I've done it in multiple campaigns. It's always good. It's never bad. There's like games, or you get high on some sort of drugs, or there's a fucking weird parade or something. But a beach episode is essentially a social vacation episode with minimal to no actual danger or consequences, and just simply like here's some fun shit for you to do because beach episode is excellent, and I appreciate that anime has given us a term for that. Because otherwise I'd have to say it's the late season dip before the climax, which is less concise. It's a way to play with tone so that when things start hitting the fan, it feels even more impactful than just the step you were before. My
advice is just run shorter campaigns because people are more likely to stick with them too.
Yep, fucking 6 sessions, 12 sessions, maybe 18. And then you're done. Then you're out.
That's plenty.
Like 20 sessions, you can knock that shit out if you meet weekly in a few months. If you meet bi-weekly, still inside of a year with rescheduling. And then you've completed a thing. Not everything has to be
How many
Fallout.
sessions have we played? We've probably done almost over 100 now.
We have done over 100. We have done like 105, I want to say, or something like that.
Wow.
Because we're coming up on year 3.
God damn.
And so we will pass year 3. I don't think we'll make it to year 4. Fourth year.
I expect
we're
to
close.
wrap up.
We're close. 2023 will be the end of the campaign for Through the Mill, one way or the other. Like everyone dies, or you beat the big bads. But yeah, we're in session. My low armor cast plot is roughly 75 sessions, which is still very long, but shorter than Through the Mill. And then the next campaign idea I have mentally in my head is something that's between 10 and 15.
Okay.
But I'm not jumping onto that because I'll let someone else DM on Through the Mill for a little bit and just play in it. But I have a 10 to 15 sort of, and again, streaming session, so it's like 2 hours, right? Old style D&D, old school, like meet in college dorms, 1990s D&D. Through the Mill probably would have been like over a year and a half. Like through a year and a half, which would have been long, with several like 4 to 6 hour weekend gaming sessions all afternoon kind of things. But yeah, that's 60 encounters, a trilogy of 4 sessions for a total of 12, but sew up points each 4 sessions.
So basically like arcs that wrap up every 4.
Yeah, do it in acts, right? If you want a great example of how to do a limited campaign and how to structure it to like really give it something exciting, watch Netflix's Arcane, because that's 9 episodes. That's a 3-act overarching story comprised of 3 3-act stories. And it does a great job, and it's a great example of, it's like, analyze it not for like what the content is exactly, but for how the story moves and how they connect and what gets resolved. And but they essentially did a trilogy of movies in television episode form for a 9-episode season, and they released it that way too, in 3-episode blocks, and it worked real fucking well. And then always make things go like really hit the fan at the end of Act 2. That's just how good stories are told. is the toughest shit, the darkest before the dawn, end of Act 2, as it transitions into Act 3. And then a beach episode right before they're about to succeed.
Then a beach episode.
Always a beach episode. Brandon, do you have any last nuggets of wisdom?
I think my last nugget was to run shorter games.
Shorter games!
And
don't do it.
Don't be afraid of
We're
other
not
systems.
always in a pandemic.
Don't be afraid of other systems. Trying to run everything as if it was D&D is like trying to build everything with only a hammer.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. The only things you should build with a hammer are, of course, Lego sets. But nonetheless, I've been Steve. This has been Brandon. You've joined Quest Board Gaming. Thank you very much for hanging out in the chat and talking with us, Riot. We will be back here on Twitch. We're busy in January, but I'm going to say 3rd week of January, probably, maybe.
I mean, so my times that I could do in January, I could either do the 9th or the 23rd.
9th or the 23rd? Maybe the 9th. We'll do the 9th. Let's do the 9th.
That's in 2 weeks.
That's in 2 weeks. We'll come back on the 9th, assuming we don't space about it, like we did this Monday. But we'll be back the 9th to talk a little bit more about TTRPGs with some more advice and everything. And thank you for joining us. If you want to catch up on any part of this that you missed, it'll be over on Dying of Exposure's YouTube. And right after this call, I will be downloading it from Twitch and beginning that upload. So it should be up later tonight. Thank you so much. You all have wonderful gaming experiences, and may the dice ever roll in your favor and the tokens ever get lost, and then maybe like a dog eats it later because it's cardboard and it's fine, but you're still upset about it because you don't want your dog eating cardboard.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Bye.